this month is kind of a special month here. Some of you know the Carters, Larry and Cheryl Carter. They're friends of the church, and they were instrumental, for example, in this beautiful stained glass we have here. And they haven't been here in several years, but I got to have a meeting with Mr. Carter, and he shared with me a vision that he had, one, to share the message of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and one, to share the message of this church. And so what Larry decided to do is he bought us 1,000 copies of this book. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And he said, this is what I'd like you to do. He said, invite each congregant to take a book for themselves, and then to take at least one and give it to somebody else. He had these awesome labels that talk about a little bit about the church in here on them. And there's no paying back or anything like that. I told him he should consider buying 1,000 copies of my book. But we're so grateful for the cards. They're going to be here later this month, and let's give them a round of applause. It's such a nice. And part of the reason why I love the idea is the book is very deep, and yet it's a very simple way into the heart of our teaching as well. And so Rick Brown, I'm going to call him up to share here in a moment. If you read it a long time ago, it's actually renewed because there's an extra piece they've added to the book. When I was meeting with Larry, Rick Brown, our board president here at church, but also a ministerial student as well, I just happened to know that this is one of the most influential books on his life. In his life. And so one of those things we like to do with our ministerial students here is we like to create a space for them to share as well. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to invite Rick up here to share with us a few moments about his experience of this book, especially as it informs us when we may be sharing it with other people. So let's hear it from Mr. Rick Brown.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for being here and talking with you today about something that's very dear to my heart and has been part of my life for a very long time. I got the book, was given the book, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, as a sophomore in high school. And I read through the book, and it just struck an excitement in me when I read the book. And I was just connected to the book. So I actually hired a fellow student to take this picture of the gull and embroider it in the back of a Levi jacket. And I wore that jacket for a few years just because it was so dominant part of my life. And then a few years after the book, there was a movie that came out, and one of my favorite performers, Neil Diamond, wrote the soundtrack to it. And I listened to that over and over and over again. It was just very powerful for me. And then several years ago, my oldest son went on a quest because he knew what this meant to me. And he found on eBay Richard Harris narrating the book. And it's an LP, and it's autographed by Richard Harris and framed. And he gave that to me at Christmas time, and I cried. Yeah. Wow. For my kids to know what's very important to me, you just don't know how important that moves you, and it's exciting to hear. And now family members, every time they see a seagull, oh, that's Jonathan. They email me the picture. Look, there's Jonathan. And so to have that is just phenomenal. And then when I walked through the door here a little over 3 years ago and I saw this window, I said, that's Jonathan. And a few people would say, well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that could be a seagull. And then to talk to Larry and find out that that was his thought behind the design of that window, I'm just like, oh, I'm in the right place. I'm here. And so hopefully you can see by all of that, you know, the demonstration for me and my connection with Jonathan. And then you go, well, okay, those are all nice, you know, but what does it really mean to you? Why are you moved this way? And so there are many instances in the book, and Josh alluded to it, that when I got the book, my book only had 3 parts. And then the wife of the author found the manuscript for part 4 40 years later and said, hey, you really should do something with that. And so it's included as part 4. So I would encourage you to read the first three and then pause,
Mm-hmm.
and then later on read the fourth part. But Jonathan, I just wanted to share one part of it. There's so many to share. That's why they're giving me a whole month on Wednesday nights to talk about it, because there's so many different parts. But I just want to share just a little part with you. Jonathan, you know, there's this whole thing about food, and that's all. That's the only reason we use our bodies is to eat, and we fight with other people. And it's like he knew that that wasn't it. There was more to life than that. And so he started his quest. And as he started his quest, it was just like, yeah, there's something more. And then as he worked through it, he had more discoveries. And as he had more discoveries, he had more fear. So the bigger the discovery, the bigger the fear. So they just kind of went up. And he had failures. I mean, he went through and he thought he had it, and he didn't. And then he would fall into the ocean, and he would go down, and he would struggle to come. He would, like in the movie, it shows him diving so fast that he goes 4 or 5 feet deep in the ocean, and you see him struggling to get back up just to take a breath. And then as that struggle continues, and more, he gets to the point where he dives and he crashes, and he doesn't even have the energy to live. He just doesn't. And so he gets to the surface, and he sees a plank of wood, like a piece of wood just drifting in the ocean, and he struggles to get over to it, and he's laying on that plank of wood, saying, "Is this it? Am I supposed to die on this plank of wood? You know, is that it? You know, is all this just for me to be here?" And then I wanted to share with you that I've had that experience. I've had many of those experiences. I had an experience where I have 4 children, and I had my boys with me, and my girls were not with me. And an incident happened where my oldest daughter, came to me and said, "Dad, I want to come live with you. I want to be with you." And so I said, "Okay, you know, what are you going to tell your daughter when she says that?" So I went through the whole proceeding with the court, and we had a hearing and all of that. And at the end of the hearing, after all of the testimony on why she should be with me and not her mother, the judge looked at me and asked, "What about your youngest daughter? What's best for her?" And I said, "Well, she should have her sister." And so right then, I found my plank of wood. I killed my own case, and my daughter stayed with her sister. And when I went home, I was on my plank of wood. And I won't go into those details, but all of you that have been on your plank of wood know what that's like. And so, shifting back to Jonathan, he just said, "You know what? It's not it. It's not where I'm going to end things. It's not what I'm all about." And so he said, "I'm going to fly again." And so he did. He started flapping his wings. He got off of that wood. He used his feet on the water because he was still too weak to fly. But he flew. And as he flew away, the urge to live, the urge for that answer was stronger than any fear that he ever had. And so he went back at it. He went back at it to learn. And that's the lesson that I learned, to go back, to never give up, and to always strive to do better. Thank you.
No.